Shape is an extremely powerful and flexible tool that you can either use as a standalone or you can connect with other apps and integrations. This can be done through HTTP posts, Zapier, webhooks, or our OpenAPI. This video is going to be covering the OpenAPI settings and how to utilize them within the system. First and foremost, we are on our OpenAPI documentation. These are our public-facing OpenAPI endpoints that anyone has access to if they have the OpenAPI enabled. We also have some alternative API calls that are available upon request. To go over some of the details, let's go over some common use cases. We have the add lead option, update record information. We also have the ability to assign users. The most common ones used are adding leads, updating leads. The update record information is extremely flexible. Not only can you update data, you can also change status and assign users all in one API call. So this is probably our most powerful API call that you can utilize. We also have searching for records as a really popular API call, bulk importing and bulk exporting records as well. We'll be covering a common use case utilizing these tools. As you can see in adding leads, updating records, you do need to have your authorization key, which can be found in Shape by going to Settings and API Integrations. You're going to scroll down slightly to the OpenAPI area where you do need to make sure that it is enabled, and you can, for security purposes, I'm not going to view the API key, but this is where you find it. And make sure that you copy the entire API key that's found here. Now, when you write to the system, we have pretty standardized endpoints for the most part. This is going to tell you the API endpoint, and then you will need to know your CRM ID that you'll need to append to the end of your API calls. So two required elements are the CRM ID and your authorization key. Our API utilizes JSON formatting, and you can find your field mappings, for example, in the system. There's a few different places, but most common is going to be in marketing sources. You can open up any one of the marketing sources and expand. You can use any one of these field mappings both to retrieve and update. You can also search. For example, if you are looking for certain field mappings that you need to either pull or update. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'm going to pull up a Postman and Zapier so that way we can go through some common use cases that are used with the OpenAPI. Okay, now in a separate window, I have Postman up, and I have this lead, Josh Cohen, open because he's missing a source and there's some other information that I want to update. You can see here I have Josh Cohen up. We have a no alternate email, no source, and I don't want Josh assigned to Josh. We want to change this up a bit. I also want to change the status as well. Because we want to update information, we are going to be utilizing our update record information API documentation. As you can see here, we have a endpoint URL. It needs to be a JSON post. Here's the request headers, and we need to include, this is a required field, the lead ID, which here you can either pull the lead ID, you can't see it in my particular video, but in the URL there's also the lead ID in the URL as well. Right after the primary URL, there's a / and a numeric number. That's the lead ID in the URL. And then, of course, we have your field mappings. So what we're going to do here is I do have Postman up. I do have the, if we go into headers, I have the header details in the body. This is defaults to a JSON post. And I have my information ready to go here. So here I have the lead ID for Josh Cohen, 1864. I want to update the source to live chat. I want to add in the alternate email address. I want to change the status to attempting contact, and I want to reassign the loan officer department to someone else. Now, let me show you how I got these mappings, and we're going to actually do the API call together. So what we're going to do is I just have any random source up because the field mappings don't change. The only reason why the source is important is the posting URL for creating an HTTP post, which I'll be covering a little bit later in this video when we get to the Zapier option. But I used the details down here. So going over here, I looked for source, and you can see here, this is the mapping for source. Next, alternate email, did the same thing. This is important. So this is a very powerful API endpoint because I can change the status and reassign all in one API call. This will actually initiate any respective drip campaigns as needed, and this will just assign and can even bypass distribution rules if you're creating the lead as well. Now, let me go through and show you how to do that. So status. In Shape, we have multiple status lists, but I'm trying to update that main status from new lead to attempting contact. So because this is the status, that is what I'm going to select. So I have master status 1, the ID 1, indicates that we're going to change that status list type. So that's what we have here, master status 1. Whenever you're passing through statuses, it does have to match identically as it appears in the system. So I went to settings, manage statuses. As you can see here, I have a lot of different status lists. But to open up this master status 1, I wanted to change it to attempting contact, which is what we have here in the value. And then lastly, I want to change the user assignment from Josh to Joe Edmund. So what we're going to do is, if you click on settings, it's going to default to the manage users settings page. And if I wanted to reassign it to the loan officer, Joe Edmund, I am going to use the user ID number. You can also use the email address as well. Those are the two values that we currently support. And because I want to assign him in the loan officer department, not the LOA department, we went ahead and looked for, you can search for user, and it'll show you all of the mapping. So I used the loan officer department mapping with his ID number here. Again, if you don't know the ID number, you can also use the matching email address. Now the last thing I have to change here is the CRM ID. The CRM ID can always be found here. 22290 is the CRM ID for this particular demo system, so we're going to put that here. Again, how to find that. There's a lot of different ways that you can find it, but I find it the easiest just to open up any lead source. This is always going to be the same no matter what CRM you're in, and this is always going to be different no matter what CRM you're in. This is unique. This is the CRM ID that you're currently in, so it tells us which CRM ID we're trying to update. The API will fail if you do not have a CRM ID and you don't have a matching API key. So, since we have all of the details organized here, we have, this is a JSON, we're doing a JSON post, we have the API key, CRM ID, and the field mappings that we want to update. I'm just going to go over here, refresh really quick just to show that we still don't have any information. And we're going to go back to Postman and we're going to send the API key. You can see here the message record, the record was updated successfully. It's going to respond back with the lead ID as a confirmation. If for some reason you get a lead ID of 0 here, that means that there may have been an issue because there's no such thing as a lead ID of 0. Going over here, I'm going to refresh my screen and now we should see a lot of changes made. As you can see, the status changed to attempting contact. The loan officer updated to Joe Edmund. We have the alternate email and the source was updated to live chat. So this did exactly what we wanted it to do. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do a combination of HTTP post as well as a API call. And we're going to do that through a different method other than Postman. We're going to use Zapier. So here, we just went ahead and set up Facebook lead ads. We're doing an HTTP post. So if I wanted to copy this into marketing sources and search this, it's going to the social media source. So this lead should be created under the social media. When it comes to our HTTP method, you can look here. This is, the default is post with form data. It also supports JSON, but you do need to make sure that you include the header, that it is an application JSON if you're using the JSON method. And this will just kind of give you some more details here. It will indicate the JSON method if you need some specifics. So how the HTTP post method differs from the API method is the URLs are slightly different. This one has a post lead. Our HTTP post method only supports lead creation, whereas our OpenAPI supports creation, searching, updating, assigning, changing status, etc. It's very flexible, whereas this is just lead creation. As I had mentioned before, our OpenAPI does not support form data. It only supports JSON, whereas our HTTP method supports both form or JSON. Just if you do JSON method, you do need to indicate that in the header. And then as you can see here, I don't have an authorization code. I don't need one for this method. The field mappings are going to be the same, however. HTTP method does not require any specific fields, whereas creating a record through our OpenAPI does have some field requirements. It requires first name, last name, email, source, and if the source doesn't already indicate the record type, you do need to include the record type, which you can get those numeric values by utilizing this API key or API call here. And then of course you can add any additional field mappings that you want. In this, we're just pushing through the email, the full name, which Shape does break up automatically, created date, and a reference ID. So very few information. What we're going to do is this. So this is just dummy data from Facebook ads, which is a common use case. We're going to go ahead and do this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to retest this step. This will automatically respond with the lead ID, which is great. You can either just go into your lead list and refresh the page, and you should be able to see that show up in the top of your list, or you can search for the lead ID, either way. So we see that this lead posted into the system under social media, first name and last name that automatically separated for us. We have the email, and it also pulls through all of that information here as well. Now, if I wanted to both post that information and combine it with an update as well, we can also do that. So we're going to continue, and I'm using Webhooks by Zapier, which supports our OpenAPI. For the vast majority of our API calls are going to be post. There are some get calls, but most often it's going to be post. We're going to continue. Next, we have to do JSON formatting here. And if we're going to do a lead create and then update, we can do that. That's the use case that we're going to cover here. So since we've already created the lead using the HTTP method, we're going to update the record. Now if you're combining it in a workflow like this, you can easily just get the lead ID from the output value here. So you can use the lead ID output. If you have no idea what the lead ID is because you're just going straight from something into an update, for example, what we can do is we can use the search for records endpoint, and we can either use, it's very rare that you have the lead ID for search, but if you do have it, you can use it. We're going to use email. So I'm going to do this here. we're going to copy this search in. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use the email value because we have that here. We're going to pull this from the original. And we're going to add the authorization key here, which can be found in settings under API integrations. I'm going to pause while I add this in. Now that I have the authorization key in, the email, I just have to update the CRM ID, which again, we can find here, 22290. So we're going to place that in here and we're going to continue. And we are going to test this step. So we're going to search for the lead, and you can see here that it outputs the same lead ID that it responded with this. That's how you can search for a record. We're going to do one more webhook down here just to show you some different use cases. At this point, we're going to update the contact record. Again, JSON formatting, update. Updating this to 22290. The data, we have to have the lead ID. That's the only field requirement. We can either grab it. We're going to grab it from the search output. And we're going to add some additional values in. So we're going to go ahead and take this and we're just going to put a sample phone number in there. And we are going to put in an alternate email. So if I wanted to add those two values, I can add two values here. And we're just going to hard code them in. Otherwise, you can pull them from apps as well by using this plus button and pulling information in. Actually, might put in a form name. Actually, we're going to use some different values here that we can pull from page name. And I'm going to do a set value as well. I'm going to hard code a phone number value. Now to get these field mappings, we go back into a marketing sources page. We're going to put in the phone here, phone, page name. So in here, in marketing compliance, you can put in some values. So we're going to say referring website. We're just going to put it there. And form name, we're going to put that into the form title. So to find that, we're going to go back into, again, any marketing source. Form title, here's the form title. And page name, we're putting that into referring website. There we go. Here's the mapping. So now what we can do is I do have to put in the authorization key, and I'm going to go ahead and pause and put that in. Now that we have the authorization key, we're going to go ahead and continue. We are going to test this step, and this record ID was updated successfully. So now I can go in and I'm going to refresh the page. And now we should see, perfect, the form title, the referring website, and if I go back to lead details, we also have the phone number. That's how you can utilize our OpenAPI and Zapier using webhooks in combination with our OpenAPI to do advanced workflows. If you have any questions, please let us know.